Exactly. Exactly.
So it's all good. Well, hey, man, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. And I'd love to begin our conversation with, we're on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic. How did you get through the pandemic and how did it change you?
Okay, I'd be glad to speak with that. I have to tell you, I have till the bottom of the hour, and so if we're going to be, is this already being recorded at this point?
Yeah, I come from jazz radio, so I'm diving in. Yeah, I plan on this being about 20 minutes long. So
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Let's just rock and roll. That's great. So, how did I get through the pandemic? Well, we're looking at one way to get through it right here. He just came by, and he's a really important piece of how I got through the pandemic. No kidding. And he's got two other dudes here. This is Valentino,
Nice.
Valentino, and Winston and Desposito were all very, very important to us. On that day in March, I was living in West LA with my wife, with my then soon to be wife, and I had visited Austin and been with my two kids earlier that month, and we got news that we weren't going to be able to take our trip to Israel because I'm actually a citizen of Israel, and my wife is a citizen of Ukraine. Just to keep that context, we have a couple different war zones going on,
Yeah.
and we learned that she wasn't going to be able to fly. So that very day, I made a decision. I had to make a decision whether to go to Israel without her or to stay in California with her. It was an instant decision to stay with her, but we had to get cats. That's what I decided. And so we went to the Santa Monica pet shelter, and we picked up Desposito and Winston, the two that you haven't met yet. And there was Valentino, and we were checking out with Desposito and Winston, and the lady at front said, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't take Valentino." So we went back and took another peek at Valentino, and the three of them went home with us that day. And it totally altered our capacity to deal with anything, including any kind of pandemic.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to step in the way of all the learning that we got from our cats on how to really live. Cats, they don't read the news. They don't care about Fox or CNN, and they don't care about any kind of mandates or masks, and they don't care about, whether or not you need toilet paper. The cats are just cats, and they taught us how to live during those 3 years. It was a big deal.
Yeah, I love cats. I used to have a Russian blue named Pepper. He was my favorite cat in the world. And I
For
lived in
sure.
I lived in the city, so he'd come in and out of the window, and he was such a cool cat. So
Yeah.
so let's get to the brass tacks of what you do on a daily basis. I'm gonna put you in front of a bunch of third graders, career day. One of the kids says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
All right. Yeah, what I do for a living is I'm a coach. I help people get their lives better. I help people who think that they're stuck or think that there's something wrong with them actually get on track again. And the way I do that is I have powerful conversations, and it's mostly inside of the listening. I have powerful conversations that really help people who are sure they're in a bad way and they're going to stay in a bad way. I help them get back into a good way by really optimizing their life and having them reorganize the way they think the world is happening to them, so that they start thinking that, they actually have a say in how their life gets lived. And I help people reorganize their lives so they actually can get refocused and find a purpose and a vision that actually draws them forth.
What did you want to be in the third grade?
Let's see, Miss Aiken. I think in the third grade, I wanted to be a beetle.
Okay. I dig it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So your tagline is the undoctor. How did you get here? What were the seeds that were planted into you early on? Where were you born and raised? How did all of this grow into you?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and I was born to a family with two older brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me, and my two parents. And apparently there was chaos and disarray all over the family, and I was born to be the bundle of joy and the cure, the healing toy for the whole family. And apparently I did a fairly good job for the first couple of years of my life. I then began to really be enchanted with the whole idea of communication, like we're doing here, like how to talk and how to listen. I would watch literally watch those 4 adults from my playpen and wish that someday I could actually communicate like they were doing. And I then, went to school only to hoping that they would teach me how to communicate. It was clear that that was really important. But at school, that isn't what they did. In fact, when I tried to communicate, I'd get in trouble. And so, I had to regurgitate what the teacher said in order to move to the next grade. And I wasn't allowed an open discourse. But I figured they learned it somewhere. So I kept on going through school and going through school, hoping that it would happen maybe in high school, and didn't happen there. It got worse. So 40 miles down the road, and because I love their helmets, I decided to go to University of Michigan, and I went there and for a couple years, and I dropped out, and then I came back because I heard about this new industry that had a future. I think they called it computers, and I went back to study computers for a little bit, but that wasn't going to be it. I wasn't going to be a batch job guy. I wasn't going to be a punch card guy. So I dropped out again, and my mom told me I had to get a job. So I got a job. Moms will be like that, right? And so I got a job, and as a child care worker in Pontiac, Michigan. And that was where I really began to get paid to communicate. That was where I really started realizing that in a powerful communication, healing takes place. Like human connection is at the heart of all healing. And I really learned that when I was a child care worker at Fairlawn Center. And I really went forward from there. I didn't like the future of psychiatry the way it was going. I've never really liked psychiatry, because psychiatry, as Prozac was being invented in 1987, a few years later, really altered the whole course of all of the world. Prozac was on the cover of Newsweek all by itself, and then the next week was on the cover of Time all by itself. And the whole idea of biological psychiatry and chemical imbalance explaining discomfort was what was emerging, and I wasn't aligned with that. So I knew that communication was what I wanted to do, and I decided to go back to school, this is my third try now, finish my undergraduate degree, and then go to medical school, be a psychiatrist, so I could bring communication to the center of how to help somebody in mental health. And I succeeded in going to a very good medical school in Chicago, Illinois, Northwestern, and then, opening up a practice in Cincinnati and having thousands of patients call me their doctor. And all the while I was being typecast to medicate, to diagnose and medicate. What's a psychiatrist do? What's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? Everyone knows, there's only one answer to that question that people know these days, and that is that we prescribe medicine. That isn't how it was in 1990, but that's how it became. And I had to grow through that whole process. Obviously, I'm not aligned with either diagnosing or medicating. So as the undoctor, I recently received that moniker from a really close friend on a vision quest I was on. He was like, "You're the undoctor." I was like, "Oh, that's a great name." And here's the story. I undiagnose and I unmedicate, and then I undoctrinate people who think that they're mentally ill and stuck, and that they're somehow that there's something wrong with them. And by undiagnosing them, I give people access to not having to take medications, which often perpetuate the symptoms they're marketed to treat. Sometimes they induce or, cause or even at times increase the symptoms they're marketed to treat. And the only access we have to that is to help people see that there was nothing wrong with them in the first place, that being uncomfortable does in this crazy world. I mean, you've noticed that it's crazy out there, right?
Yeah.
I imagine most people I talk to realize it's pretty nutty out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's okay. It's really okay to be confused, to be afraid, to be depressed, to be nervous, to be tired, to be scattered. It's all good. It's completely okay to be out of line in a misaligned world. And I really help people get that. And that really helps people in some ways really get realigned.
Yeah. So who's been a hero for you, an inspiration in your life?
I've had a few heroes. I think when I look back at it, there's different physicians who have been heroes for me. Samuel Hahnemann, the guy who led off all of homeopathy, was an interesting physician. And some of the earlier physicians like Maimonides and Hippocrates are amazing physicians, the healing themselves and really getting the whole point of what it takes to be a physician. In the real world, in our world, it's funny that I think Bruce Springsteen was a very major impact for me. I saw Bruce in 1975 before
Wow.
I was at a concert before I had ever heard of him.
Wow.
And that was very cool. That was very cool to see Bruce Springsteen in a half-filled small stadium.
Yeah.
And someone had told me, you got to see this guy. He's like the new Bob Dylan. I was like, okay, what's his name? Bruce Springsteen, whatever, let's go. And so I saw Bruce. He was a big player for me. I really just someone from the streets who could make a difference in the world. I really, really loved him. Michael Jordan's been a very major player for me. Same kind of thing. I went to Chicago in 1984 for med school, and Michael went to Chicago in 1984 for the NBA, and he was right down the block. I had season tickets during medical school. It was fun to watch him grow with the whole process. David Letterman was another one, actually, who was really important to me. My late night TV addiction moved from Johnny Carson, who was the old people's dude. I love Johnny too. He was great, but Johnny and Ed McMahon. But when it all shifted to Letterman, I just thought he was truly the funniest guy I had ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I loved his improvisation. Speaking of jazz, I mean, it was just a guy who could pick up a vocal instrument and just dance with. He could just boogie with anybody all night long. He would be able to just jam, just, serious notes coming out of that guy's mouth through the listening that he was.
Absolutely, it was. Yeah, I was addicted when I was a kid. I still love Letterman to my core.
He's so amazing.
Yeah, he is. So, what's your inspiration? What gets you out of bed every day? What gets you to do the work to not only help people, but to evolve as yourself?
It's a good question. I mean, because I just got out of bed today and I was asking myself that same question. Every morning I ask myself, what's the point? Why am I getting out of bed? And I don't really always know why I'm getting out of bed. And these days I have a pretty nice relationship going with my higher power. I spend a fair amount of time reading the Zohar and getting that, which is the Kabbalah's, the center of the Kabbalah. And, so I do some work inside of Judaism. And last night, I thought about this when I was taking on this podcast. Last night, I got my next, I learned all about, diminished chords and augmented chords and relative minors and sevenths and fourths and fifths inside of my piano over there. And so I'm in the world of improvising, which I thought was really in line with this whole conversation, because I saw who you've been interviewing and not a lot of people like me. And I really saw, I had so much fun in my piano lesson last night, learning the real truth of what a diminished chord versus an augmented chord is, or what a seventh really is, what a relative minor, what A is to C, what B is to D, like really getting how the piano works and a little bit like the whole progression and evolution of chords. So I think creativity, connection, communication, and some willingness to believe that if I come out of bed, get my cold shower, take my remedy, take care of my cats, drink my bulletproof coffee, have some juice, have a lot of water, see the sky, and be present, like actually, acknowledge that I might not be the biggest thing on the planet, and acknowledge that even though I don't have a purpose, my authenticity is likely to make a difference for another person or two. And I don't know how the thing's going to unfold, despite my wish to know a little bit more about this unknown thing that's called life that's in front of us. I think that's what rolls me out, is, getting to each thing I do. As I made my coffee today, as I emptied the dishwasher, as I took care of the boys, as I, got ready for this meeting, it was like, okay, you're getting in the saddle. There's a reason. And I'm meeting you right now. It's like, oh yeah, what am I doing? This is 1 hour after waking up. Well, who is this dude? And why am I here? And who's listening or watching us? That makes a difference just to go through those early steps, get a routine, get a gratitude list going. Start looking at the world through those kind of filters. What's my point? And maybe I wake up to go find what that point is. And I know some people who wake up, charmed, right? Like they're in the freaking gym by 4:30. I'm like, I can't quite get that done right now, but there's something about believing that somehow I found a purpose by last night to call yesterday a good day. So more than likely, if I get on my horse this morning, then maybe by tonight I'll be able to look back and say, "Oh yeah, that was a good day. I made a difference in some people's lives."
So well said. So let me ask you, let's get to the brass tacks of everything that you've done in your life and overcome and become. There's been a lot of things, long journey. What are you the proudest of?
Hmm. I think when you use the word pride, the only things that the things that immediately come to the top are my two children, of course.
Yeah.
I have a son in Dallas who's just like my best friend and the coolest dude I've ever met in all situations. He's just so great. He's fun, he's handsome, he's brilliant, he's caring. He's got a great wife. He loves life. He loves humans. He's a realist. I really love him. And the only thing better than him is my daughter.
Yeah.
And my daughter's up in Portland and she's just magical. And we've gone through our own changes over time. And, I think my relationships with my kids are really what's here. And then I guess the next thing, being proud, is that I'm 66 years old and I wake up with this kind of fervor. This is my energy at
Yeah.
66. And I realize there's not a lot of 66-year-olds. You can't count on being 66 and wake up with this kind of passion and this kind of beat, this kind of humming. And
Yeah.
I do that. I've cleaned up all my relationships are pretty solid and pretty complete. I don't have stuff out. There's no one chasing me down. There's no tax collectors or paternity suit lawyers who are after me right now. Thank goodness for all of that, right? Like I am actually living a life that works in a super crazy background. Like right this minute, if you take a photograph of what's going on with Dr. Fred's life, dude, I got some shit put together in this life. I really do.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty amazing accomplishment in the face of all the stuff that's going on in our external world.
That's so well said. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm caring and forgiving. I think I'm interested. I think I am wise, almost despite myself, because I have been around the world. I have been I have literally, practiced in Thailand and Bhutan and Nepal, Israel, Italy, France, England. So I think I'm just a human being. I think in the end, I'm able to listen and able to capture people right close to where they are. And, I think I'm a conversationalist and someone who underneath it all, although it's not always clear, I don't think, I'm pretty humbly curious about the way humanity's unraveling. And pissed. I'm pretty pissed too.
I get it.
I'm pretty pissed.
Yeah. So what's the last good album you listened to?
Good album I listened to. I'm going to say Jethro Tull Passion Play was the last, or maybe it was Thick as a Brick. One of those two. I listened to the whole album from front to back, and it was like, dude, that's some good shit right there. That is some serious. That Ian Anderson is dead serious human.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let me ask you this: as a man that's traveled the world, and obviously has a very strong curiosity about this planet, what's one of the most unexpectedly magical, beautiful places you've been to?
The Negev in Israel, the desert in the southern Israel, is the most magical, and Jerusalem. So I think that Jerusalem sits in the northeast of the Negev, in the middle of the state, but I think the desert, which takes over, takes over the south of Israel, some people say that's where the moonwalk was actually filmed by Stanley Kubrick, and I mean, that's what some people say. I'm not saying that. I don't want your audience to put me on that stage quite yet. It's really incredibly beautiful in the Negev, like so shocking. It's just astonishing how amazing it is. Now, it can't knock the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is an experience for sure. It's more than just what you see there. It's really just just a blow your mind experience. Let's see, in there's a city in Jordan. There's a castle, and I forgot what's the name. I somehow temporarily forgot the name of the city. Gosh, I shouldn't even have brought it up if I can't remember the city. But anyways, there. And then all the ancient nature inside of Rome is also beautiful. And, you know, things in England, like London, watching the birth of the United States through London is pretty incredible as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more about you, anything about your world, where do they go?
They go to drfred360.com. That's where you're going to find the most about me, drfred360.com. Or you can come to my other website, which is welcometohumanity.net. And there you can get a copy of my book. I have a couple books. One of them that I think really suits your listenership is called The Creative Eight. And The Creative Eight really speaks to what I said before about connecting with the human through, and through self-expression and creativity. And really healing as a result of that. So I look at art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening as my top 8. And really looking at when you have a symptom, a mental health symptom, and you don't feel well, you feel off balance, one of the ways to get balance is just finding creativity and performing. Either performing, maybe listening as well, but really if you're actually just making music, if you're actually dancing, if you're actually singing, those symptoms go away while you're doing that. Oh, you were made to create, made to make music. And it's really, you can get a copy of the PDF or the Audible there of Creative 8, as well as many other things, a lot of freebies and my podcast. I've been on 100 or so podcasts and my own podcast where I'm a host. A lot of things going on at drfred360.com.
I love it. Dr. Fred, you're so good, man. I love this. It's intriguing. It's beautiful. Keep doing the great work, man. You're spilling a lot of light into the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. And I appreciate I was like, how did my team get me on Neon Jazz? And here I am. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for giving me the spotlight.
Yes, sir.